Morning everyone, and welcome back to the Runpreneur vlog, where we discuss all things entrepreneurship and running. It is a fresh 2 degrees this morning, which is but no breeze, so not too bad to run in, a little bit cold. And it's Friday funnels today. We discuss all things sales funnels and marketing. And the topic we're going to discuss today is the information, education, transformation, implementation quadrant. So, as always, if you like this episode, please give it a like and a subscribe, and let's get started. So, what is the information, education, implementation, transformation quadrant? Well, it's a simple, basically, if you sell an online course, this is primarily, online course or an online product. Okay, what do people buy? Okay, people don't buy, and this is the importance. If you identify as a quadrant, you've got the left-hand side of the quadrant, top and bottom, and you've got the right-hand side of the quadrant. Okay, now the left-hand side of the quadrant, you've got information at the top, education at the bottom, and on the right-hand side, you have implementation at the top right, and transformation at the bottom right. Now, the way this quadrant works is, if you have a product or services, it sits somewhere within that quadrant, okay? And where it sits will dictate generally the price you can charge, or the perceived value that your product or service offers. And I kind of made this up myself, really, but it does ring very, very true, and hopefully it will help some of you out there. That basically on the left-hand side of the quadrant, it should almost be free, okay? Because you've got YouTube, you've got Google, you've got all sorts of different search platforms out there now where you can find as much information as you desire. So generally speaking, charging for information is difficult to get a premium price when there's so much free content available. So if you are an information-based product, now wait, there are lots of different types of information-based products. I'm not being overly generic, but if you're just creating an information-based product which just provides information about a topic, could be a blog, for example, then that's not I would question whether that's a chargeable product. At the bottom, which is slightly higher perceived value, but still in the free side of the quadrant, you've got education. Now again, you look at your children, they grow up, they get educated in school, and okay, it's funded by taxpayers, but overall, it feels like it's free to the kind of general public, if that makes sense. And the thing is, education is, there's either really relevant education or there's irrelevant education. Now, some would question that all education is relevant because it teaches you the capacity to learn. And although I do agree, when it comes from a marketing sense, education without direction, again, I don't think you can charge for. Because what it does, teaches them how to do something, but if that something is not relevant to what they're trying to accomplish, then you can't clearly charge too much for that product, or you can't charge for that product because it's teaching people stuff, but it's not linked to something that's going to make a significant difference to their life. So that's when you get across into the right-hand side of the quadrant. Okay, now this is where you can charge for things, because, and I took this from again Russell Brunson, someone I follow. He says, and his quote was that people pay for the transformation of their lives. Okay, so whatever you give them, whether it's a product or service or whatever, what's the transformational statement that comes with that? And that's the power. If you can understand how you're going to transform their life by doing something, that's where the perceived value, and that's where the high value becomes, because people buy into not necessarily the product or service you're selling, but the transformation of what that's going to give them. So the product or service is almost a byproduct of them buying into the transformation that they perceive will happen to their lives. Okay, so that's really, really important. So transformation is the bottom right. That is the epitome, that's where you want to go. The other thing that people do pay for is implementation of. Now that's at the top right hand side of the quadrant. So it's slightly lower on the value stakes, but still very chargeable, because what you'll find when you sell products and services to people is you get a huge number of people that are procrastinators and the product and service can be the best thing ever, but if the person, the consumer, doesn't use them effectively or doesn't implement them accordingly, then they're not going to get those transformational results. So the next thing you can charge for is implementation of. So that's when you do something for someone. So, i.e., it's not just a product or service you're giving that they use, the product or services that you do something for them. So a prime example is a service provider. So I have an outsourced finance director, and he does, he manages the bookkeeper below him, and he also deals with all the financial reports, and we have monthly management meetings. Okay, so that is a service that he's giving me. So he's doing that for me. It's the implementation of all the bookkeeping, putting all together the management reports, dissecting them, analysing them, having monthly meetings with me to tell me what we need to do to improve our financial position. Okay, so that's implementation of, and I see that as extremely high value. Okay, so I pay a premium for it. Okay, so that's an example there. But ultimately, if you're selling products and services, you want transformation. Now, you can get crossovers, and with the example I just gave you with the financial director role, is that is transforming my business empire, if you like, to be more profitable, more efficient. That is a transformation journey that I want to be on, and I'm buying into that. The implementation is almost the byproduct that comes with it. So I've bought more into the transformation of what that service is going to do for me. So the key is to try and get what is the transformational aspect of your product and service. Now, information, right, could be transformational, but the issue with information, if it's not structured in the correct way, it's just information, and different people process it in different ways. Okay, information in a structured fashion becomes education, and again, education, obviously, we're used to a schooling system where it feels like it's free, but education with a targeted outcome can become transformational. Okay, but if it's just education without a direction or a goal behind it, then it remains just educational. So again, you can't charge. If it's educational and you actually do it for the individual as a service, then it's the implementation of. That's a product that you can charge a premium for, because people will see the value, because that implementation will have a transformational outcome to them. Okay, so this is how it's all linked. And then implementation of, people pay for because they haven't got the time or the energy to do it themselves. But again, they're not buying in to the implementation of something. They're buying into the transformation that implementation will give them. So it's kind of, you start at the top left, move to the bottom left, up to the top right, down to the bottom right. But the goal is to get to that bottom right, because the problem with implementation of is the time it takes. Okay, the time it takes to deliver. It's often not very scalable. My finance director, for example, he can only be the finance director for X number of clients because he is the service. So he can only be that. Now, he can charge a premium because of the limitations, but that's not scalable. So if you want to get a scalable outcome, the art is turning your product or service, whether it's information or education based, into transformational, and trying to avoid the high time element of the implementation of, and the capacity limitations. So I think to summarise this, is really dig deep on your product or service or what you're offering, and ask yourself those questions. Where does the company sit? Is it just information that I'm providing? Well, I do this vlog. Okay, this is information. Okay, I'm fully aware of that, right? But I like to give people value so that people see me and I build my credibility as an individual and as a brand. Okay, because any product or service I link to the Runpreneur brand in the future will have an element of credibility attached to it because of the graft I've done in the information space. So there is a place for aspects in all of your different quadrants. Another example would be that I have a lead magnet that's attached with this vlog, which is my 70-step checklist to repurposing, reformatting and optimising your social media content. Now that's in a structured fashion. That's an educational lead magnet. Okay, so people download that and it's educational. And but again, I don't charge for it. You know, okay, I ask for an email address, but I don't charge for it, it's free. Because I know that although that's a really good piece of educational an informational document, the issue is that a significant proportion of people won't ever do it because they'll procrastinate. Now, if I was selling a service that I will do that for you, which is ultimately what the social media agency will be, that's implementation of. Now, people pay a premium for that. Now, again, to make that scalable, the only way you can make that scalable when it's a service-based business is the cost of sale attached to the labour resource you apply to it. Now, when it comes to a financial director role, it's quite a specialist role. It would be very difficult to have a team of financial directors at the same level as the guy that works with me. It's quite hard and challenging to scale that. Now, when you're doing repurposing social media content, and you can bring in people with social media experience relatively affordably from places like overseas, then you can scale up. But obviously your size of team is going to be in relation to the number of clients you have. So that can be scalable in that degree. But I think the key point here is that you can have something in all sides of things. I mean, I've got a transformational side of things is we have a business that's our 2 Squared Academy. Okay, our transformational statement there is come through this educational program, which is educational, but put the steps into place with our support, giving you accountability, and we will replace your income with property income within 12 months. Okay, so that is transformational. People are buying into that more than the fact that they have to do 52 weeks of an online program and take actions every week to achieve that. Now, we would have weekly sessions with them to thrash the whip to make sure they stay on track. But still, if they do what we're training them for, that is transformational. So you can kind of see how you pull things forward, and you can see how different types of marketing activities can fall within the different quadrants. And I think having a good coverage of all sections of the quadrant, you're building credibility on the left-hand side with quality educational information, which is free, information about you and building a brand, building your credibility. And then when you switch people over into the paid world of your business, it's when you're implementing stuff for the end user, or you're transforming their lives. And hopefully this has made sense. It's a little bit more waffly than I was hoping it would be, but ultimately, you need to have a marketing strategy in each of the areas. Content is almost information. Lead magnets are almost education. This is how I would categorise it. And then you have a done-for-you service, which is like a super high premium product. And you have a transformation, which is something that's going to transfer people's lives. And ideally, that can be high ticket. That can cross over with the implementation side of things. But it can also be something that's scalable on the basis that it's going to transform somebody's life. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a high premium done for you, but people are buying into the transformation rather than the actual product or service. So, I hope that's useful. It's a model that I created. I think it needs a little bit of work, but I think the underlying points and learning outcomes for it are fairly strong. So hopefully this is something that makes you think slightly differently and makes you think differently about what you're doing. Where is your product sit at the moment? If you're trying to sell information or education-based products, it's a tough grind. It's a hard industry to crack. The people that make the big differences, we've finally found something that's really starting to show signs of taking off, and that's because we're looking to transform people's lives rather than just giving them big education and focusing on the education. And quite often, a few small and minor tweaks to your product and service will turn it from something that shouldn't really be paid for into something that's very valuable, high perceived value, and you can charge a premium for it. So that's pretty much it for me today. As always, if you like this episode, give it a like and a comment. Any questions that you drop me a comment on, I'll respond to everyone. If there's a bigger topic, I'll do a separate vlog episode and tag you in. If this is relevant to you, that's no drama, just unfollow me on your social feeds. You don't have to unfriend me, but unfollowing me will stop your feeds being cluttered with my content. But before you do that, do check out the Runpreneur YouTube channel and soon to be released blog and podcast that you'll be able to find in my the link in my bios, because I cover a different topic on every day of the week. So just because today's topic may not be relevant, tomorrow or the next days may be very relevant. So it's definitely worth checking that out. So all that's left to say is that the Runpreneur vlog was set up to help entrepreneurs and business owners overcome the emotions of stress, overwhelm and anxiety by using exercise, or in my case running, as a release mechanism or release valve to relieve yourself of those daily pressures or weekly pressures in the form of stress. Now, when you relieve those pressures or relieve those stresses on a daily or weekly basis, it clears your head. It gives you clarity and focus, which means you can be focused on your journey, on your direction, and you can move forward. You can analyse what's happened, you can tweak and change things. If you don't have that release mechanism to relieve those stresses, then it works like pressure building up in a pipe. Pressure being the stress, okay, and pipe being your mind, ultimately. And if you don't release those stresses, they build up like pressure does in the pipe, and then the stress will then build to overwhelm. Overwhelm is when you freeze and you panic, which turns very quickly to anxiety, and before you know it, bang, the pipe bursts. Either entrepreneurial breakdown or business breakdown. Often, if you reach that stage, it's a very, very difficult place to recover from. So try and avoid it now rather than waiting when it's too late. And you know, this is my release mechanism. These running vlogs are my release valve. I do them every day, and for the last eight or 9 months that I've been doing it now, there's no coincidence that I've made more progress in the last 8 to 9 months than I have in the previous 4 years. And I've been at the rock bottom stages. I've lost businesses because of these emotions. I've lost business partners, and I've almost been bankrupt. And it's a horrible, dark place, and I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. So my pledge to you is that if you are someone struggling with stuff, drop me a message, okay? There's no catch here. I'm not selling anything. We'll jump on a call. I'll talk through my experiences and stuff I've learned, and I'll hopefully give you some pointers that will be transferable into your daily or weekly lives that will make a huge difference in a positive way and get you back on that right path. Because help is often there and people don't realise it. They think it always comes with a premium. It doesn't always come at a premium, but you just have to be prepared to ask. And sometimes a stranger's help is easier to take than someone who's nearest and dearest. So don't be stubborn, don't struggle with entrepreneurial pride. Reach out if you are one of these people before it's too late. Many have already done so, and I know they're reaping the benefits already, which is amazing. As I always said, that if this vlog helps just one entrepreneur save one business, it's been 1,000,000% worthwhile. So, on that basis, as always, if you like this episode, give it a like, a comment and a subscribe. If you want to check similar content or listen or hear it or read it in different formats, please check out the link in my bio. And as always, I'll leave you with stay positive, stay happy, and I'll see you tomorrow.